J-O-E in the place to be. HB on the track, it's like ecstasy. Rolling a well of 7 years, what we drink and be. Trying to sling the dopest rhymes in the galaxy. Let me take a minute though and relax your mind. Sometimes these words can be hard to find. 24/7 on that daily grind. Hearing voices in my head, man, they not that kind. Cause bitches be bitching, snitches keep snitching. The world keeps turning, and I keep hitching a ride instead of living my life. Yo, 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 yo.
Man, when you feel hungry, don't you have to eat?
Yo, yo, pump up the volume and digest this beat.
Rapscallions in the house with this lyrical treat.
When we're done with you, you're gonna ice your feet.
If the world ends tomorrow and you had one chance,
Hey, yo, would you start to move like it's your last dance?
yo, do something small in the past and present changes.
Do something now, the future rearranges.
Cause bitches keep bitching.
Yo, snitches keep snitching.
The world keeps turning.
And you start living your life instead of hitching a ride. Rapscallions. J-O-E in the place to be. HB on the track, it's like ecstasy. Rolling a well of 7.
Welcome, everybody. Episode 41 of Rapping with Rapscallions. Right next to me, my 0.5, Jose Mesquita, a.k.a. Joe. Today's topic, episode 41, is Dia, or Incidente de la Tajada de Sandia, the watermelon incident, also known as the Watermelon War, episode 41. Joe, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. Excited to be talking about this topic, this very peculiar and unique incident that marked Panama's history. I'm doing good, man. Happy to be here. Always one of the happiest times of the week. Sunday afternoons, rapping with Rapscallions, man. This morning, dude, I went over to visit our good friend Chechi. I saw him. He has a baby, a beautiful bouncing baby girl, Morgan. I saw him. I saw his beautiful wife, Nikki, and they're all doing swell.
Wonderful.
They're doing great.
You know, that's some hardcore Famscallions right there. He was in the hospital with his wife and the brand new baby. And he sent us a picture of him watching Rapping with Rapscallions. It was a family event. That's hardcore, man.
Yeah, man. And I think our voices, we were the first podcast that Baby Morgan ever heard.
Oh, that's beautiful. Fan for life.
Thank
you, little baby Morgan.
No doubt. But yeah, man, I'm happy to be here. Happy to be united because it feels so good. Did you know, my friend, that the Major League Soccer season started again today? Started once again today. So I'm rocking my Inter Miami CF hat because they're playing right now against the Los Angeles Galaxy. We've spoken about MLS in our shows about soccer.
Yeah.
So I just think it's pretty cool because, as we all know, David Beckham owns Inter Miami CF, and David Beckham played for several years for the Los Angeles Galaxy. And one of the things that he put in his contract was that he wanted to be able to have a team in Major League Soccer in the future. So it took him several years to get it off the ground. I actually forgot that he played for the Los Angeles Galaxy in like 2007 or 2008, man. That's like a bajillion years ago.
Yeah. Was he bending it back then or no?
He was still bending it. He was bending it as an elder statesman of soccer at the ripe old age of like 35.
My goodness.
So I was like, man, that's not old. That's still pretty young, I think.
Yeah. It's
But I guess in soccer, man, or in sports in general, people age. People age differently. You know, when you're in your 30s, you're a goner.
There's also a young high school girl who's they're talking about opening up Major League women's soccer to people straight out of high school, making exceptions for her and comparing and contrasting the differences for up-and-coming soccer players in the United States versus in Europe. That was an interesting article. I think the girl is just about to graduate high school, and she's like this phenom, you know?
Right.
And they're talking about how she might change the way that possible athletes either go to college or go to the major leagues. And speaking of college, Joe,
yes.
Do you have any plans, or if you're graduating from high school? It might be too late. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Listen, HB, let me tell you something.
Yeah.
When you're graduating, man, after having spent all those years of high school, that's not the time to learn that you haven't saved enough money for college, man.
Oh, yeah, it's way too late.
It's way too late. You got to start that process early because going to college is expensive.
Oh, yes, it is.
Very expensive. It's very expensive, man. And let me tell you something. If you want a free personalized college cost report, you can contact the one and only Luke Robertson over at Edward Jones, premier financial advisor. Luke Robertson. He can sort you out. He can help you get what you need in order to have enough money saved for college, HB.
Indeed.
And you know what, HB?
You've got a plan.
You can call him at 757-481-0023. That's 757-481-0023. Or you can send him an email over at luke.robertson@edwardjones.com. I mean, hey, if I was in high school right now, I know what I'd be doing. I would be sending him an email.
You got to plan for those college days. You got to plan for your future.
You do.
And
you do.
you just don't go willy-nilly and pick stuff.
No.
You got to plan. And you got to plan with a financial advisor. And this guy, Luke Robertson, you know what? I've known him my whole life. He's from the Canal Zone.
Yep.
He was born in Panama. He has sipped of the Chagres waters.
The Chagres.
Yeah. So if you're in the United States and you need a financial advisor, give Luke a call. Write him an email. If you don't know what the first step is, talk to him. So, excellent segue, by the way, Joe. That was very well done.
Thanks. Well, that was all you, my friend. That was all you. But I have one important question to ask you, my friend.
Yes, sir.
Because I've been talking about David Beckham in Major League Soccer, but I never asked you, how has your week been?
Oh, it's time for the Rapping with Rascallions weekly wrap-up.
Yes, it is.
Shazam.
Boom.
Well, I am out in the interior, and we had our first major rainstorm of rainy season, and it was a doozy. So a lot of flooding in Changuinola in the highlands.
Yeah.
I sent you the video of the water overflowing, and it rained super hard here.
Yeah.
The flies and the beetles and the termites are coming out.
Oh yeah.
And I'm planning to go into the city next week, so I had to get the finishing touches put on my Taj Mahal chicken coop.
How's that holding up with the rain, man?
It's wonderful. We tried to put some roofing on there, and it was too heavy, so I got some plastic roofing. It's very resilient.
Right.
And when I think of plastic, I think of like sunlight plastic. You get that that powdery. No, this is like UV blocked and everything.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I put that on the roof. The chickens are happy. They're laying eggs. All is good in chicken land.
Cool, man. Yeah, I think it's been raining quite a lot. I think you should probably expect some rain next week when you're in the city as well. Right now, as I look out my window, HB, I see a dark, ominous cloud over the city. So I think we can expect rain. And also, Inter Miami CF just scored against the Los Angeles Galaxy. They're winning 1-0.
Oh, goodness. And you know what else I did? This is pretty
What
cool.
did you do? Tell me.
I made a foot pedal for my studio lights here. And
oh, snap.
Rapscallion. Look. Here are my hands. Uh-oh. It's dark. It's light. I can do it with my foot.
Oh, wow. Look at you, man. You are
very proud of it.
You can do things that nobody else can.
It's like a Fred Flintstone type thing. I got some bamboo and a switch, and there's a little bird and a hamster in there.
Man,
amazing
right now
technology.
I wish I had that right now, because I think it's just going to get darker and darker, and then pretty soon you're not going to see me. You know what? I'm looking at myself on the Instagram feed, and I am like super distorted.
Super distorted? Let me see if I can fix that. I've got buttons for just such an occasion. Are you like Ripley or what's
I'm like Ripley, man. I don't even like, if only I looked like Zordon did on the Power Rangers, but not even. I think I'm just a voice.
All right, I pressed the button. Does it work better now?
No. But maybe it's my phone. Maybe on other people's devices I look good. Okay, there we go. I can see myself now. I can see myself.
Yeah. I got a button here. It's called, you know what the button's called? It's called Rainbow Puke.
Rainbow Puke? And that's what fixes people's faces.
It is. It's because it's a compression technique where there's one frame and then they only send the changes between frames
right
sequentially. So I can press that button and then it makes them send a frame each time. So anyway,
All right. Well, I
enough
look
about
much better
rainbow
now. Thank
puke.
you. I appreciate that.
Your beautiful visage. We cannot distort that. The people
I mean, it's
deserve
part
to
of the
see you.
experience. It's part of the experience, right?
Indeed. So, do you have any more updates about your week, my friend?
No, not really. I think it's been a week. It's been a week where I've been very busy with stuff. So I'm glad it's over and hoping for more better stuff. Mo better. And you're coming to the city, so that makes it better.
Yeah, coming to the city.
So that makes it better.
We'll have a Rapping with Rapscallions reunion.
That's right.
Talk about the future of the Rapscallions.
Mm-hmm.
And we got a lot of people tuned in. I see a lot of people. Please let us know. We're talking about Dia de la Sandia, the watermelon war, the watermelon incident. Should we get started?
Let's rock and roll, man. I mean, let's just do it. I think first and foremost, HB, of course, we need to issue a disclaimer.
Big disclaimer.
Massive disclaimer.
Yeah.
Because we weren't there.
No.
We're just reading what people who were there said happened.
Right. And there's a lot of conflicting information going on, like a lot.
Yes. A lot. And some people said someone did this, and then some people said someone else did that, and then we don't know who to believe, but we're just instruments. We're just instruments getting the information out so you can maybe do some extra research and then maybe call us up and say, Rapscallions, check it out. This is what happened. And then we'll be like, yo, that's crazy.
Yeah. If you at any moment during this webcast, you feel like an anxiety or an anger, channel that into picking up a book or to Googling. There's so much information out there and a lot is interesting. And of course, not all of it's objective. So once you start hearing about this and hearing about that, then shoot, my opinions changed in the last 2 days. And then what was it? This past Thursday, one of your professors.
Yes.
Actually, it was at the actual date of the watermelon incident. And one of your professors, Carlos Guevara Man,
yes,
well-known historian in Panama,
yes,
doctorate in history. He actually did a web show. So I watched that, and in preparation for watching that, I read and Googled. So even in that arena, there's so much, what I read conflicted with what he said, and then he recommended some books that I want to pick up. But Arnold Ferguson's tuned in, and he also said Pixeles. Yes, he's gay. What's up, Arnold Ferguson? He went to school with me at BHS, at junior high. I think we met in junior high school, Corundu. And he says, never heard of the Dia de Sandia. And he says, watermelon, I should know. Racial humor there. So, okay, Michelle's also tuned in. She's like getting ready to learn something new as I have not heard of this watermelon war before. Okay.
Wow.
Let's just jump in. And there's a lot of on the Zonian side. I know a lot of my Zonian friends think it's, well, let's say, what was the first time you heard about the watermelon war, Joe?
I think it was probably, I'm sure that we discussed it when I was, because, after I moved back to Panama from the US, I did my final 2 years of high school in Chiriquí, in David Chiriquí. So I'm sure it must have been mentioned in a history class there, because my history teacher in high school, she wanted her students to know about Panamanian history. However, 17, 18-year-old Joe probably did not have the mental capacity to actually retain this information. Yeah. So then the following time, sorry,
that information was blocked by raging hormones and comic books, right?
Exactly, and rap. And rap. Don't forget the rap.
And the opposite sex, I think.
Exactly. So then the next time I remember having heard it was I took a history of Panama course in FSU in the early 2000s, with which Carlos Guevara Man was a teacher. And I remember it being mentioned there. And it was kind of like, that's very interesting that all of this could happen over a watermelon slice.
I mean, the first time I heard of it, and I love Panamanian history. My dad loved Panamanian history, and I'd never heard of it, or maybe if I did, Maybe I was under the effects of my teenage hormones. I don't know. But the first time I actually heard of it was I was in the El Rey of Coronado when they just built it.
What?
Yeah, this was before the big real estate boom in Panama, before there was like expats everywhere. So
right.
On the way to Santa Clara with one of my Panamanian friends, I was staying at his house for the weekend. We're having a big party. I was buying beer. I was pulling beer out of the beer cooler, and in that El Rey, the fruit section's right behind you. And there was these Panamanian dudes, and they were like, "Oye, gringo, tú quieres sandía? ¿Tú quieres sandía?" And they were like, I was like, what?
Really?
What are you guys talking about? And my friend came over and he saw them doing that, and he's a peleón, man. He was like, "Hey, te voy a sacar la." Like,
yeah.
So we get in the car. I was like, "Hey, what were those dudes talking about, man?" They were like getting like all aggressive, all aggro with me about the watermelon. I was like, "Dude, I don't want watermelon. I got beer, man. Get out of my face." I was like a teenager, I wanted my beer.
Yeah.
So then he told me about way back when, and this is the precise date was 1856, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
is that
man.
correct, Joe?
Donkeys years ago, man. Seriously.
Donkeys years ago. About how, okay, so for those listening, we've beaten around the bush enough. To encapsulate the Watermelon War, or El Incidente de la Tajada de Sandia, or Día la Sandía, in essence, what it was is during the gold rush, there was a lot of people coming through Panama. They built the railroad, and there were some gringos going to California.
Yeah.
And they got all drunked up. And as they were walking to the ship, to the steamer that was going to take them to California, this one dude picked up a piece of watermelon from a vendor and didn't pay him.
Nope.
A scuffle ensues, and next thing you know, there's a freaking riot in Panama. There's several different versions of what happened. There's several different versions of the mortality count. I think it was 15 Americans and 2 Panamanians. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what I read, my friend.
Okay, so in essence, gringo gets drunk, takes a piece of watermelon, refuses to pay for it. Knives are pulled, guns are pulled. Scuffle, riot. People start dying, and then the next day, nothing happened. I don't know.
And they did reviews, they did inquests, they did studies to try and figure out what it was. Typical stuff that happens nowadays. It just happened back then. And then I guess nobody really reached a proper conclusion with regards to what to do about that incident. However, I think it was a very marked I think it's interesting if we look at it that way, because the way that those guys were bothering you in the supermarket, now that you mentioned it, to me, if there's someone who's doing that, I guess if someone's doing that to you just because you're American, I would assume that they have some sort of resentment within them towards a specific type of person, because maybe they assume something of this person. And I think back when this happened, there must have been a lot of tension in Panama that would lead. There was probably a lot of resentment from the local community to the American expat community of the time that was coming through.
Oh, absolutely. We're going to dig into all of that. Joe's done some incredible research. We have touched on this before. We've done research since then. Yes. And even in preparing for this show, we're like, well, what Professor Mann or Dr. Mann said, or Dr. Guevara said, is different from what we said on our previous show. So we were trying to find our sources and corroborate our sources. And, just to go more on the emotional side, I mean, that was my first introduction to this.
Yeah.
And I was like, God, that's so stupid. So that happened. Yeah. That happened so long ago. Why is this guy getting mad at me now for something that happened over 150 years ago?
Yeah.
Recently I was with some friends, and they're Zonians like me, and they're in the school system in Panama, and they're kind of like, it's kind of weird that they're making our son do a reenactment of the Dia de Sandia at school.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah. So as Zonians, we're kind of, God, that's kind of weird. That's kind of dumb, you know? And I want to make this preface right now. Like, on the surface, I think Panama holds that as a time they stuck it to the gringos, right?
Mm. Mm.
However, we need to do our research and we need to investigate a little bit, and we'll come to see that the famous saying, if you do not learn from history, you're bound to repeat it.
No
So
doubt. No doubt.
the way that they're teaching it in schools now, I think, is a little silly. And,
How are they teaching it now?
well,
HB,
it's kind of
I'm distorted again.
distorted. I think you need more light, brother.
Let me go do something. Hold on. I'll be right back.
All right, I'm gonna keep talking jibba
Yeah, yeah.
jabba.
Keep.
I'm gonna keep doing the jibba jabba. Let me know in the comments if there's still distortion on Joe. Oh, Joe became a school for ants, like in Zoolander. Okay, he's gonna get a light setup, but the way it feels now to me is that Panama's being selective in their teaching of history to show gringos in a bad light in order to. It's kind of like the nationalist movement that was pushing towards Panama gaining control of the canal. And I can understand that. However, I think it's short-sighted, because if you look actually in depth into what happened during the Dia de Sandia, you'll find out that Panama has been repeating history over and over and over again, and we're not learning. They say that you're doing good now. I pressed the button and you've turned on more lights.
I turned on more lights.
Do you have an influencer light or something? You're an influencer now.
I haven't turned it on because I'm afraid. I'm afraid of what will happen if I turn it on.
Guys out there who are listening, what do you guys think? Should Joe turn on his influencer light? He is, after all, an influencer.
We're influencing you as we speak. You just don't know it. Now you're going to go buy watermelons, all the watermelons that you can, and make delicious
I highly
watermelon.
recommend it. I buy like a watermelon a week because they're in season in Panama and they're so sweet.
Let me tell you
delicious.
something. Watermelon juice is the bomb. I love me some watermelon juice.
Yeah. You know what you do? You put you cut the hole and you put the bottle of Seco in there. Scrumptious.
Oh my gosh. And nutritious.
Very nutritious.
At the same time. HB, I totally missed what you were saying about how they're teaching.
It feels it from my point of view, and again, I want to make a disclaimer. I'm a Zonian. I'm also Panamanian, but it feels like they're choosing certain subjects to push a nationalist agenda, which is to regain control, or not to regain, but to gain control of the Panama Canal. And it's been 21 years now. That type or that flavor of education, I think, needs to be completely rewritten.
Yeah, and I think that the Tajada de Sandia had nothing to do with the Panama Canal. Like, there was no sort of like, let's get control of the. I mean, it had nothing. I mean, there wasn't a canal at the time. I think it was the railroad.
There was a railroad.
The railroad.
The railroad was fresh, but what I think it is right now, it's being taught. Like, oh, look, this is because remember when I played Pershing? Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, this is very important because this is a time that we threw rocks at Pershing and he ran away.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's how everything is. Like, everything is kind of geared or stated in a way to paint in a nationalist way why Panamanians should not like the United States.
Right.
So for me, the goal is to try to objectively point out, you know, using your good research and our dialogue, why it happened and what was the climate of the era and what we can learn from it.
Yeah, for sure. And I can't take all the credit for the research. HB did a ton of research as well. We did a research tag team. The information.
We've been going back and forth, tag teaming that research. Boom. Arnold Ferguson says, I hate watermelon Jolly Ranchers, but don't mess with my watermelon. Can't stand watermelon flavored stuff. Must have the real thing. I can agree on that, man. Panamanian watermelon's the best, by the way. So all you gringos know that. So, I mean, how do we start? How do we paint the picture? We have on our write up kind of a timeline of events. What was going on in that era, so that we can understand what would lead to a small incident. And it just occurred to me that during Professor Mann's Zoom presentation, one of the people said that uh, it's a known way of stating how something can just blow out of control, how something small can turn in.
Yeah.
So it is a euphemism for how something can get completely out of control, how one piece of watermelon can lead to thousands of people rioting. And Kathy McDaniel Fussell says, "I'm same, Arnold, and I'm so jealous, HB. Miss fresh fruit from Panama." Well, watermelons is particularly sweet right now, and the maracuya is in abundance. So what was the environment like at that time? Like, as you said, we're let's look at our timeline. Let's pull that up. And
I think because even before, I guess, in what 1849 was when William Henry Aspinwall was chosen to head the Panama Railroad Company, right? And that's that moment there. If we could have been someone who traveled from the future, we could have been like, bad stuff is going to go down in a couple years' time when this railroad is finished. But I guess in the moment when they chose Aspinwall and they were like, hey, you're going to head this up, May 1850, the site chosen to become Aspinwall or Colón or Manzanillo was marshy, and it was filled in to form Aspinwall in 1851. So I guess when this happened and he was like, yo, I'm going to build a railroad, I was thinking about this and I thought it was the same sort of feeling when Martinelli was all, yo, I'm going to build a metro because it's going to create thousands upon thousands of jobs for people.
Boom. You just hit a major talking point there. Lots of jobs. So the building of the railroad is very fascinating history, and Colón at that time didn't even exist. There was the main ports were Chagres, and there was Yankee Chagres, and then which was across the river, and then there's Fort San Lorenzo, which many of you have probably visited.
No doubt, beautiful
all
place.
The way. Yeah, that's where the Chagres came out, and then up the coast a bit, you had the island of Manzanillo, which is where Aspinwall and Colón would eventually be built. And then further up the coast, which if you want to know about that, you see our Island Hopping Volume 2. Excellent episode. A lot of people love that one.
Yep.
Further up the coast, you have Portobello. So between Portobello and Chagres, a lot of people were trying to figure out where they were going to put the Atlantic end of the railroad, and they started buying up land. And one guy bought up all this land to try and force the board to put him on there. And they're like, we're not going to put you on the board, sucker. We're going to go ahead and build it over here in the most swampiest, disgusting swamp that you ever saw, so that we don't have to pay your crazy prices and put you on the board. So they put it on the island of Manzanillo, and then eventually they just kept filling it in until it stopped being an island. So they filled everything in, super marshy, like 4 feet of disgusting gopher guts, and by the way, the Panama Railroad, terrible. It was the first interoceanic railroad. It is to this day the most successful company in the history of the New York Stock Exchange. So much history, Joe.
That's pretty cool. Could I buy stock? I would like to buy stock in the Panama Railroad. How do I do that? Could I do that?
Dude, if you go back in time to talk to Aspinwall, can you leave me a message to tell me to buy stock in that, to buy stock in Apple, to buy stock in Yahoo, to buy Bitcoins? My goodness.
Man, crazy. But anyways, so the railroad was built, right? It was built, and this was during the time, of course, of the gold rush. And as you mentioned earlier, my friend, there were a lot of people trying to make it through the U.S. from the east to the west, so that they could get to California.
Yeah.
And get all that gold, man. And you had loads of people that were trying to make it to California. It was a boom for the economy in California. And I guess going through Panama was much quicker and safer than traveling through the US. And I always thought, like, how could it be, But then I think I've been trying to associate a lot of these things. Yeah. I've been trying to associate a lot of these things with today. And then the other day I was reading a report or an article on sports teams in the US and their travel within the US and how basketball, has like a Western Conference and an Eastern Conference. And then teams that play in sports like Major League Soccer that don't have Eastern and Western Conference, they're like, it's grueling to go from the East to the West, from the West to the East, because I guess of the length of travel, because the US is a huge country.
It's huge.
So I can't even imagine what it must have been like during that time to not have the infrastructure that's around today. And you would be like, yo, I need to get from New York to California. I'm going to go through Panama and I'm going to take a steamship and then a railroad and then another steamship and then insane.
Anyone who's played that game, Oregon Trail, we talked about it in our pandemic. Cholera was huge. You just die. And what happens is that you start diarrheaing so forcefully that you dehydrate and your blood eventually turns to jello and you die. Shout out to Dorita Avila. She's tuned in. She is currently the Rapscallion's favorite author.
No doubt.
Check her out on Amazon, Across a Blood-Drenched Isthmus. Show us, Joe. I don't have mine in hand because I was reading it. It's really good. Y'all check it out.
No,
you can find it on Amazon.
I think it's next to my. I think I don't have it here. I have it next to my bed.
Usually I bring it here, but I have it next to my bed. I was reading it earlier.
That's where we read. That's where Rapscallions read in bed.
Yeah, Read Scallions. We're
Scallions.
gonna create a Read Scallions reading group. We're gonna post Dorita's book. It has to do with a Scotsman in Panama, and if you watch all of our episodes, you know that Scotland had a lot to do with Panama. So check that out. It's good to have you on the show. She sent us a watermelon emoji. I gave a shout out, but I kind of lost track. What were we talking about, Joe?
HB. Sorry. Nice. People can go on Amazon to get Across the Bloodstained Isthmus by Dorita Avila. And they can also get it on Kindle. Kindle. Very important. You can also get it on Kindle.
Yeah.
But sorry, HB, we were talking about Oregon Trail. Cholera.
Oregon Trail, cholera. And imagine building in Panama is lots of swamps, lots of cholera. Ulysses Grant crossed. He came down to see how the railroad was being built, how that was moving along, and as he was crossing the isthmus, he was taking a garrison of troops towards California, and he lost everyone. Everyone died of cholera. So cholera
Seriously.
was a huge thing. So we're talking about the environment in Panama at the time. So you have tropical diseases like malaria, yellow fever. You have waterborne diseases like cholera, which will just wipe out a whole town. So that's kind of the environmental stuff going on.
However, it was still safer to come through Panama than to traverse the United States.
Indeed. It took so long. If you think about those wagon carts and stuff, like your grandkids are the ones that got to California.
Yeah, seriously. How wild is that, man?
And you also had the option of going around the tip of South America. So a lot of people speculated, and they knew that crossing the Isthmus of Panama was the best way to go. And because of that gold rush, people were like, first of all, they started mail. They started steamers on each side of ports in Panama. They crossed the old Camino de las Cruces they came down the Atlantic side, went to Fort San Lorenzo, floated up or paddled up the Chagres to Las Cruces, which is right there in Gamboa, where the Gamboa Hotel is. Across is where the end of the Cruces Trail is. You walk that and you end up in Panama La Vieja. They had steamships set up to take mail from the Atlantic to Pacific and Pacific to the Atlantic. And they crossed the same trail that the Spaniard used to bring riches from South America.
Look
And
at that.
then that investment group who decided to make the Panama Railroad, bling, bling, they're like, let's make a railroad.
Money in the bank, man. And it's also important to mention, my friend, that when the railroad was being built, that the Mayarino-Bidlack Treaty was in full effect.
True.
And this treaty was signed between New Granada, which is today Colombia and Panama, and the U.S. And it was officially called El Tratado de Paz, Amistad, Navegación y Comercio, the Treaty of Peace, Friendship, Commerce, and Navigation, and was meant
And
to represent...
bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. But it was an agreement on mutual cooperation, HB.
Yeah,
It was an
mutual
agreement on
cooperation.
mutual cooperation to get smacked. Basically, it granted the U.S. transit rights over the isthmus, as well as military powers to suppress social conflicts and independence struggles targeted against Colombia.
Mm-hmm. Now, Colombia was having a lot of internal wars at the time, and you could say this is one of the first times that a foreign country gave sovereignty to another country through Panama. Right?
That's wild. That's wild. It'd be like, I was thinking about, again, trying to associate it to issues that happen today in today's day and age. If we still had a treaty like this in place, then remember when the Eladio and the jubilados go protest in the street?
Yeah.
The U.S. could intervene.
Oh yeah.
And use military force to suppress them.
Oh, I wish they would. Those jubilados, my goodness.
Well, that's wild, man. That's wild. It'd be like you're sitting at home, you're just like, oh, there's a protest. Oh, just, the U.S. Hey, guys, we have a protest. And then in comes Delta Force with Chuck Norris, just taking him down.
Go home, jubilados.
That's wild, dude. That is wild. Anyways.
Arnold Ferguson says dengue. We missed dengue. And he's also saying that Joe is pixelated again. Let me press the button. There we go. I think you need more light, dog.
I need more light.
Yeah.
Okay, let me see what I can do. Hold on. I'll be right back. You can carry on without me.
Okay. They're saying Joe, sonogram Joe. Joe is pixelated. Also, Chuck Norris was a ranger. Indeed, he was. He could have gone down and gotten people to get those jubilados. Anyway, we're having fun making jokes, but again, to keep talking about what the environment was like in Panama. So a lot of people, and I mean a lot of people, not just people from the U.S., want to go from one coast to the other coast because there's gold there. They're going to make their riches. So the first thing is, oh yeah, exactly. When Joe is pixelated like that, it's a feature that we have so that you guys will remember the information that we're giving you. It's subliminal pixelated art, and in every one of those lines is information so you guys will remember. So we have hundreds of thousands of people that want to go make their fortune in California. So you have tons of people, an influx of people spending money in Panama, an influx of people, getting robbed. And what type of people are there? What type of person do you have to be in order to take on that chance? A lot of people died getting to California. So I think the type of person needs to be brought up. The type of person that is willing to cross, that's willing to travel in a place that's known, hey, I'm probably going to get cholera if I make this trip. So you have an adventurous type and probably not the most civilized of people. That's not saying a lot, but maybe not the most respectful type of person. And that's kind of overgeneralizing, but it has to be brought up. Are the people who are making this trip, are they going to be nice people or are they going to be rowdy people? It's probably a little bit of both, but you are going to have rowdy people making that trip. So Joe's back. He's fully lit.
I'm back. I have no more lights. I have every single light I have on.
All the lights are on. All right.
All the lights are on.
All right, let us know if he looks better. We definitely want Joe to look good.
Thanks. I
Hey,
love you. I want
You
you
feel
guys
very
to.
influential right now. Oh,
Can you see? Can you see the light in my eyes?
yes.
Go buy watermelons.
Go buy watermelons. Buy rapscallions loot at PanamaRP.com.
Yes, visit PanamaRP.com. Buy Rapscallions merch.
Buy it. There's also we're going to be adding. We have 2 buttons on that site, PanamaRP.com. One is a Patreon button, and the other one is Ko-Fi button. And there's a new service out there. It's like Buy Me a Coffee. We're going to be adding that one too, because you don't have to sign up. You don't have to go through a bunch of sign up stuff. You just press a button and you buy us a coffee. And please buy us a double, triple macchiato with Panama watermelon pumpkin spice that costs like $8.
That sounds delicious.
So all I was saying, Joe, is the type of person that was going to cross the isthmus was probably going to be like a rowdy person or an adventurous person.
Yeah.
And it is certainly it's possible that some of these folks probably weren't very respectful people.
Yeah. I can agree to that.
Yeah.
I think it certainly wasn't someone. So the type of person that was probably crossing the isthmus wasn't someone that was going to be like, oh, let me come and admire the local culture and learn, about the local cuisine or blah, blah, blah. No. They were just like, I need to get to California.
Yeah. And that's not to say that the people who didn't cross weren't also ugly people.
That's right. No, I think, it always takes 2. It takes 2 to tango, and it takes 2 to start a war.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
So we're in that era of crossing, and when we're talking about time frames, we're in the 1849 is the beginning of the gold rush.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, the railway. Oh, let's see. In 1851, the first 11 miles of the railway were completed from Manzanillo, which had become Aspinwall, later to be renamed Colon, was finished up the Chagres River. And people were willing to pay at that time 50 cents per mile and $3 per 100 pounds of luggage to just go up the track, and from there go to Las Cruces and pay someone to carry their luggage and walk with them to Panama City.
Right.
Now, let's talk about the jobs that are available. You have canoemen, you have steamer captains, you have rowboats that take people out to the ships.
Yeah.
You have hotel, food, police protection. There's quickly becoming a industry surrounding people crossing the isthmus.
And don't forget, you have also the people with the stalls where they sell what are these called? I forget what these types of businesses are called, but just, the stalls that are set up like the boneros or whatever.
Oh, like the pickup stands, like little roadside stands
where you can buy your fruit, your stuff, your random things. So these were all enterprises or businesses that were set up around the canal, the railroad. Yeah. The railroad.
And back then there was something known as the Yankee Strip, which was probably the first phantom of what was eventually become the Canal Zone.
Right. Yeah. I think. Yeah.
Also, there's a lot of jobs, and with that much wealth, there's a lot of crime.
Yeah.
So when there's crime, what you gonna do?
You need to get someone to get stuff in order, man.
Right. We did a whole show about this gentleman. The railroad decided, because a lot of people were also walking the path of the railroad. They were taking whatever land had been cleared at the time, and that strip of land, the Yankee Strip, a lot. So they're like, what the heck are we going to do about this? They went and found the meanest, badassest person to clean the place up. Looks like we have a little internet interruption, par for the course. Thank you, Cable Onda. Yes, carne en palito. You have carne en palito guys selling their carne en palitos. You have Sandia. Are you back, Joe? Can you hear me?
I'm back. Yes, you have sandia, delicious sandia.
Carne en palito.
Carne en palito as well. Man, carne en palito is perhaps one of the most ancient dishes of Panamanian culture.
Exactly. And do you think that those passerbys were stopping by and asking about the spices involved and the meat involved in the carne en palito? No.
No.
There's also, a lot of the accounts that we've read state that they were charging a lot. So there was Juega Vivo back in the day. You know, carne en palito used to be you get 3 for 75 cents, 25 cents a piece.
Yep.
Now it's $1.50 for one. It's like, what
Yeah.
the heck's going on? So anyway.
Yep.
back
And this
in the
was
day-
also this was after the railroad was completed, right? So there were still a bunch of people that ended up jobless because the railroad was completed. So now people were trying to make do with what they had.
Yeah.
At the moment, right? Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thanks for pushing us along. I think we kind of got stuck there. They brought in Ren Reynolds, who cleaned up the railroad. This guy went through. He hung 37 people in Panama, and crime stopped. And then he a few months later, he hung another 47 people. Crime stopped, and that's El Verdugo de Panama. Very influential.
I think what's very interesting about El Verdugo, because I was reading again when we were prepping for this episode before, when I'd read about Ryan Reynolds, not to be confused with Ryan Reynolds, I was like, man, this guy was like a superhero. Like I could totally imagine a super like action movie starring Ryan Reynolds, playing Ryan Reynolds playing Ryan Reynolds. But anyways, I was like, people must have loved him, but no, like Panamanians or like the locals in the area were like, holy crap, who is this guy? However, I think he had like a team, his Isthmian Guard. It was composed of people of all different types of nationalities.
Right.
So it wasn't just like he showed up G.I. Joe, which I think in G.I. Joe there were like different nationalities as well. So he didn't just show up with like his team of American people saying like, let's hang a bunch of people. You know, he had a multi-ethnic crew.
They investigated. They made sure that they found the right guys, and it was his troop or his Isthmian Guard was comprised of people from several countries. He spoke what was described as border Spanish, so he's probably like Texas Spanish or something like that.
Right.
And they did their investigation for a long time, and then one night, he wrote for authorization. He's like, look, this is the people I think is doing this. Do I have authorization to take action? And they gave him the go, and he went. They grabbed these guys, they hung them, and so anyway, we're talking more about the railroad than we are about the Dia de la Sandia, but we're setting up the environment in Panama.
Because I mean, the railroad is very important.
Yeah,
the railroad is very important to the Sandia, so it's important to understand that.
And what you said, now that we've established crime, lawlessness, there's a lot of people who thought that Colombia couldn't enforce the law in Panama.
Yeah.
So they brought in Rand Reynolds. And so what you said earlier is absolutely true. The timeline here is that the railroad was completed, let's see, in 1855, January 27th, which is a very important date. 1855, the last rail was set in the pouring rain, and that was the completion of the railroad. So in a year, in a few months is when the Dia de la Sandia happened. So you had a boom time of a construction boom time, and then the construction was completed, and a lot of people are out of jobs. You have steamers replacing the canoemen. You have the railroad replacing the mule packs and all the people helping. So a lot of people are out of work.
Yeah.
So you had feast, now you got famine.
And you have all these people coming through behaving, not all these people, but some of these people coming through behaving in ways that are potentially not very respectful. And also you could be inclined to think that they're wealthy. Because, they're either going to California or they're coming back from California. And if you're coming back from California, they're loaded from the gold.
Yeah. Oh, one more thing I wanted to add was the abolition of slavery, Joe. Do you have any dates for us on that?
Very important. Hold on.
Now, the Civil War in the United States, we're talking about 1856 for the Dia de la Sandia. But internationally, There are some important dates that we need to mention.
January 1st, 1852. That was when it was said that all slaves would be free
in Colombia,
which
included Panama.
Yeah. So then you had a lot of slaves. You had a lot of freed slaves that were living in that area where the train was, of where the railroad station was.
Right. So Professor Guevara also proposed that, I think we've got some more pixelation. Let me press the button. Right. So Professor Guevara proposed that, a lot of people coming from the U.S., mostly from southern states, were still in the mentality of slavery while they're traveling through Panama, which had already abolished slavery.
That's right.
There might have been, there is most definitely a conflict of respect there.
Yeah.
I think, in my opinion, it's a good point, but I think 1 year is not enough time for slavery to really, abolition of slavery to really become a factor in this.
I think
racism was definitely a factor, but abolition was not a factor.
No. I mean, I agree. Definitely, racism had a lot to do with it, without a doubt. And I think in some of the accounts that we've read, the way that the locals are described, leads me to believe, they were described as what, like beasts and
Negroes.
And just like terrible people, like at least from the accounts of we've read,
half-naked fishermen.
For them, these were animals. These were people that had no education. These were people that just, all they cared about was violence, and they were just driven by violence and yeah.
So racism definitely a factor. What I disagree with is thinking that abolition had a part in it. I think that this guy, whether or not there was slavery in the United States, still would have done what he did.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, so in a sense that he didn't respect that these were freed slaves. In what sense about the?
No, the guy got drunk and grabbed a piece of watermelon,
and he was ignorant.
Yeah, so he was like, "Oh, hey, watermelon!" Yum, 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 yum. He's like, "You got to pay me." But no, F you.
Screw you. Yeah. No, he was ignorant.
Yeah.
Totally.
So a lot of the disparity that we're also finding is on how much the slice of watermelon actually cost. Some people in Panama records, it was 5 cents. In U.S. records, it's 10 cents. Don't know, but you can get a whole watermelon for $1 now. So like, seems kind of expensive, but that's besides the point.
Yeah. So I guess if like moving along, I guess if we're getting into the actual incident itself and when it happened, right? You had a lot of people that were coming through on the train, and they were going to get onto the steamship in order to continue their journey over to California. But there was a problem with the tide, so they weren't able to take the boat that was going to take them from the train station to the steamship that was going to help them to continue on their journey. So they had to wait for a couple of hours in Panama City.
Right. Yeah, because if you think about it, on the Atlantic side, the tidal difference is 6 to 12 inches. So the tide rises and lowers this much. But the tide in the Pacific side can go out 12 feet. So if you arrive on the train, and supposedly they'd also had a bottle or two on the train ride, and the train ride was 5 or 6 hours. Imagine that.
That's insane. So you had all these people that were in this 5-hour train ride. They were getting crunk on the train, and they get to Panama City. They're trying to get over on the steamship. I got the name of the steamship here. For those of you interested, it was called the John L. Stevens. It was heading for San Francisco, but they couldn't. And there were 1,200 passengers on this train. That's a big train. It was full.
And and that's just the people arriving on the train. There's also many people a lot of people in Panama City in hotels and whatnot waiting to board that as well. There's up to 3,000 people. Some estimates put it. Arnold Ferguson says the first Juega Vivo was a gringo. Que vaina. I disagree with you. Juega Vivo is a Panamanian art, and no one else, no other country, whether they're part of New Grenada or Spain, can claim
To
to
be
be
a
the
Juega
first
Vivo.
Juega Vivo. Yeah, you have to be a Panamanian to be a Juega Vivo.
That's right. That's right. Hey, I think I'm pixelated again, man.
Okay, let me press the button.
Press the button.
All right, so while I'm pressing this button, it kind of leads me to believe that, we've talked about investing in college.
Mm-hmm.
What else do we need to talk about as far as planning for your future, Joe?
Let me tell you something, HB. If I was a person that deals in finance, I would say, and you came to me for help, I'd be like, HB,
Mhm.
dreaming up the ideal retirement is your job, okay?
Right.
And it is my job to help you get there. I want to help you have the ideal retirement. And you know who also wants to help you have the ideal retirement?
Well, I've gone to California. I've dug up a bunch of gold. What's my next step, Joe? Who do I
You gotta
call?
call. Look, you're coming back from California with all this gold, man. You're like, man, I want to retire in a couple of years, live the good life. How do I invest my gold? Your goal is to invest the gold. You call Luke Robertson, man. Luke Robertson, he's a financial advisor over at Edward Jones, man. This guy, listen, he will tell you what to do with that gold so that when you retire, you'll be lounging in a hammock all day. All day. It's just relaxing, man. And you can reach out to Luke.
Yeah, that's where my Rapscallions money is going, is to Luke.
Hey, man, all this Rapscallion money from all the merch we're selling is going to go straight to Luke Robertson. And once we get done with the show today, I'm going to call him up, HB. I'm going to hit him up at 757-481-0023. 757-481-0023. Or maybe I'll send them an email, too. Usually I like to send people emails first. So I'll write to him at luke.robertson@edwardjones.com. I'll send them an email, and then I'll call him. I'll be like, Luke, HB has all this gold. How do we invest it so we can retire in style?
And that style is what Rapscallions is all about.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to style the way we do, our merch is on the way. We've already ordered it. By next week's show, you'll be seeing the merch. If you want to be styling like Rapscallions, go to PanamaRP.com. You can check out our T-shirts, our totes. If your phone is unprotected, don't do that, man.
Don't do that to your phone.
Look, protect your phone.
Protect your phone.
You can check us out at PanamaRP.com. And by the way, Luke helped us set us up with the merch too. This guy is Fam Scallions, Zonian. He drank Chagres water, which a lot of these railroad people were drinking. They were coming down the Chagres. They were getting ready to go to California. And what were we talking about? We're talking about how at that time, where were we at, Joe? How do we get back on track?
So we got 1,200. We got 1,200 people, my friend, plus all the people that were staying at the hotels, waiting to get on the John L. Stephens steamship, but they can't because the tide is low. The tide is low. So what are they going to do? A lot of the people on the train were like, "Hey, let me take a wander through the area around the train station called La Ciénaga," which, as we already discussed, was a poor neighborhood, and it was mostly freed slaves, laborers, artisans, and new immigrants, just like hanging out.
So if you're wondering where that's at now, that's around where the fish market is now.
That really helps to put things into perspective.
Right. So these guys are wandering around. They're in the mud flats, which, as we have discussed before, one of the definitions of Panama is mudfish, I think. Mud flats, mudfish.
That's right, mudfish.
So these drunken jacknuts are walking around.
Yeah.
They're like, oh my God, what are we going to do until it's time to board the boat? Let's walk around. So it's kind of like that time that Arnold went to Las Tablas. And
what happened to Arnold?
Arnold, he grabbed a piece of fruit in Las Tablas. He didn't pay for it. But you know what happened? Nothing, man. They just drank a beer. So what happened in Panama that caused this violence? So and let me look up. What was the guy's name again?
His name was Jack Oliver.
Jack Oliver. Jack
Name it.
Oliver.
Jack Oliver.
Jack Oliver walked by, and I don't remember if the name of the watermelon salesman is also in here.
No, me neither, man. I don't recall having seen his name. I just know that people were very aware that. Oh no, wait, Jose Manuel Luna.
Jose Manuel Luna. The
Yes.
guy's got a little stand there. You know, maybe he worked for the construction of the railroad. Now he doesn't have a job. He's like, what the heck am I gonna do?
Yeah.
The guy's like, shuso. I gotta make ends meet.
Yeah.
He finds a watermelon. He's gonna sell it. Chops it up.
Yeah.
Some
And
drunk gringo walks by, takes a piece, doesn't pay for it, and he's like, "Hey, man, you've got to pay me for that water. It's my watermelon. I'm selling it."
Mm.
They scuffle. They argue. Now, there's two main differences. Well, there's very many differences in what happened, but the main parts that are different are the price of the watermelon, which is either 5 or 10 cents, and who pulled the gun.
Which back then was a lot of money.
Yeah, definitely. We can send that to the research department. Maybe we can call Luke Robertson. He's a financial advisor. How much is 10 cents? How much is
10 cents worth in 1856, man.
1856? Value of 1850. Okay. All right. Maybe you can carry on while I figure out this Google math. So confused.
So HB is right. Nobody knows who pulled the gun out, when the gun was pulled. Some accounts say that Oliver pulled out a gun and Luna came at him with a knife, and that one of the other passengers stepped in and just said, "Hey, here's your money, man." But I'm assuming he must have done it in a way that was very sort of like
He probably like frat boyed it. You know, like the frat boys at Mardi Gras where you like bounce the 10 cents off the guy's head.
Yeah. He's like, what's 10 cents?
It's 10 cents. So 10 cents in 1856 is worth $3.12 today.
Hey, I could do a lot with $3. Well, actually, no, right now you can't do anything with $3. I don't know what I could do with $3. I could buy a watermelon. I could buy 3 watermelons. I
have a hard time buying coffee now for $5 when I can buy it for 25 cents and just as good.
Yes.
So we're not trying to excuse Jack Oliver in any way. And some say that Jack Oliver pulled the gun. Some say that the people he was with pulled the gun. But over a slice of watermelon, a big fight started. Someone pulled out a gun. Mm-hmm. A third party ran in and wrestled the gun away and ran off. That's a commonality with both reports.
Yeah.
And
however, apparently when the wrestling was happening, a bystander was shot.
Shot at or shot?
Shot. That's what I read in one of the ones I read was that someone was shot.
I know the shot was fired. I didn't know someone succumbed to a bullet.
Uh-huh. That's why there's a lot of different accounts.
Yeah. So there's a big scuffle over a slice of watermelon. Mm-hmm. Someone takes off with the gun, and next thing you know, this surge of chaos starts forming.
Chaos. And of course, this probably had to do with, as you said, Luna probably worked on the train. And then here he is trying to sell his fruit. And then here's this guy who's this frat boy, for all intents and purposes, coming around. He's like, I'm going to steal you. And he's like, yo, I need that to feed my family. You don't know what he's going through. And there must have been so much I don't know if anti-American or just anti-foreigner resentment at the time, because there were more than just Americans going through the canal, through Panama at the time, that these guys who maybe had jobs, they were living a good life, and then they were just like, yo, too much.
Yeah.
And it just boiled over.
Dorita says hashtag Team Sandia. So write a comment. Are you hashtag Team Sandia? Are you hashtag Team Frat Boy Gringo 5 cents?
But it's funny though. It's funny because I've met plenty of people throughout my life that when they go abroad, they behave like total jacknuts. And it's like, yo, if you wouldn't behave like that at home, why are you behaving like that overseas?
You got to be on your triple best behavior.
Triple best behavior. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I don't know. But that's what Jack Oliver was doing.
Jack Oliver, aka Jack Nut Oliver.
Jack Nut Oliver, man.
So these guys had acted in such a way that, guns were pulled. They're probably completely shablasted,
for sure.
Kind of like me right now with my drinky poos. But so what happened next is there was just an incredible surge of violence. Now, what happens after this? It's kind of hard for us to follow a timeline because we found like many tendrils of different stories.
Yeah. But there was mass riots that were aimed specifically at the foreigners in Panama and the foreign-owned stores, hotels. And this seems to have been pretty scary. And then apparently, supposedly, the authorities called in the police, right? They called in the Panama City police to help quell the rioters and calm the situation down. And according to stories at the time, the police joined in with the mob.
So several different accounts here. The police, which are Colombian police, they're not Panamanian police, came in and they disarmed all the Americans on the
steamship.
The steamship Taboga.
Which was the one that was going to take them to
the John L. Stevens.
Yeah.
Right. So they disarmed all the gringos that could have participated in this. And then all the gringos who were in and around the area of this swell of violence took refuge in the railroad station, the terminus of the railroad in Panama City, and barricaded themselves in. This is around the fish market area. The old what was it called? Muelle Fiscal, which was what used to be down there. There's a huge market there.
You can still see the tracks.
You still see the tracks. Arnold Ferguson chimes in. He says, perhaps it was just a disrespectful gesture on Oliver's part towards Luna. Superiority complex might take. Definitely agree with you on that.
Yeah, totally.
You've got a traveling person who's a North American who is completely wasted. He's walking through town, does a disrespectful gesture.
Yeah.
So what a lot of historians are trying to nail down is how did it go from this to complete bedlam? So they disarmed all the people on Taboga, all the gringos in the area, and I think it's fair to say that it was probably a bunch of white people.
Most likely.
Yeah, I don't know how many people of color. One of the things that I wanted to mention, and I'm sorry to go off on a tangent though, is a lot of the workers on the canal were of Cantonese origin. So you had Cantonese workers, and I bring this up because a lot of people don't know why it's named Salsipuedes, and we're talking about the same area. You have the fish market, and then up the street you have the Terraplén, and going up the Terraplén, which is Calle 13, is Salsipuedes.
Yeah.
Now I bring this up.
That's where all the boneros are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, I've been in a lot of there's a lot of forums out there, and I've brought up why it's called Salsipuedes, and a lot of people say it's because it's dangerous, but that's not why it's called that. It's called that because that's where the opium dens were located. So you'd go there and smoke opium, and you wouldn't come out for a week. So
Man, are those opium dens still there?
Let's go find out. We'll do a Rapscallions smoke session. Yeah. So that's around the area where a lot of people now would know where the arches are in Terraplén. That's on or around where this took place.
Thank you, man. Thank you for putting that in perspective, because maybe sometimes when you're reading these things, you're kind of like, where did this happen? How did this end? So when you have the actual locations, it kind of helps to make the story a bit more real in your mind, right?
Yeah.
For sure.
And again, we've found several different accounts. I found in Harper's Weekly an article about the railroad, and the Old English is pretty interesting, even though it wasn't that long ago. It was like the Carthaginians in the railroad camps are beheading the Chinese workers, and I was like, Carthaginians. This is the wrong era and the wrong continent for Carthaginians. But if we look back at the map makers, the maps were written in French at that time. So it was the workers were freed slaves from Cartagena. Those are the Carthaginians.
The Carthaginians makes sense.
Right.
Makes sense.
So there was also violence among the workers of the railroad. And again, these guys are out of work.
Yeah, they're out of work. It's chaos. You know, I saw a movie that reminds me of this situation a couple of years ago. I think it had Pierce Brosnan and it had Owen Wilson. And Owen Wilson went to work in an Asian country. I forget the name of the movie. I forget the country. But something happened that made all of the people in the country turn against the foreigners in the country. So Owen Wilson's task was to lead himself and his family to safety at the American embassy. And then, of course, you know, he just did it because he's Owen Wilson, and when he's not being super cool and mellow, he's a super awesome action star.
True. Hollywood.
So I don't know. I'll let you know if I remember what movie it was. But it reminds me of the situation because when this was happening, of course, a lot of people took refuge in the hotel, right? And one of the accounts we read was of this family that took refuge in a hotel. They locked themselves up in a room, and they were just hearing everything that was going on around them, all of the violence. And I mean, if you're someone that if you're not familiar with the area, you know, you're going to be terrified. Totally terrified. Definitely. And they were told, right, you had these kids, you had women, and I remember what struck me the most was this 18-year-old boy who was with this family, and they all hid in this room, right? And the mob came through, and they were like, but they had told them by someone who was in the know, who worked for the train station, that said, don't worry, they're not going to hurt women and children. They were just after the men. And so this boy was hiding. But then all of a sudden, for some reason, the boy came out, the 18-year-old boy, and they like beat the crap out of him. And that's insane. And then they wanted to take one of the kids.
Yeah, they were like, give us one of the kids and we'll let the rest of you go.
And then the girl, his older sister, was like, I'll give you this gold ring in exchange for my brother. And the leader of the mob was like, oh, okay. But you could tell from the accounts, the way they saw these attackers, I think one of them was a woman, and then she was like, her hair was all matted and confused, and she was just wearing a nightgown, and she had a machete that was covered in blood. How terrifying. How terrifying. And then, of course, and then you think, man, what situation must these people in La Ciénaga have been in for this incident to lead to this sort of massive eruption of violence? When you think, you know, because like Arnold said, superiority complex by Jack Oliver, potentially inferiority complex by Luna. I don't know.
I think I think it has to do with this is my current opinion, because the more I read, the more my opinion changes.
Yeah.
Disclaimer. I think it has to do mostly with the loss of jobs.
Yeah.
I'm convinced of that. It's like you have people making lots of money and all of a sudden making no money. So that's when 5 cents or 10 cents, which is $3, that means a lot. And that's enough to get in a knife fight about. That means you're hurting at home. That means you need to do something.
Yeah.
And for that fuse to be lit so quickly, and I mean quickly, everything kind of just blew up over a slice of watermelon. And also that means that a lot of people were in the same situation.
Yeah. And just, I guess, the blatant lack of respect, you know?
Well, I think that was the spark. That was the enzyme. The disrespect was the beginning of it.
Yeah.
But in order for everyone to participate so quickly, I think it has to be an environment of poverty. You know,
It
a lot of people
resonated.
were making money, and then all of a sudden they're not making money.
Yeah, and it resonated with everyone in the community, and they were like, "Hey, give us a break."
These are the people. All these are all the reasons why we're not making money is right in our face right now.
Yeah.
There's all the reasons why we don't have security, why we don't have food for our family. It's all happening right now.
Yes. Boom. Agreed. I agree. Yeah. And then that's it. They took off, man. And it must have been scary. I can only imagine how scary it must have been like for the people that were being attacked by the mob. And then thinking, if I was in the mob, I can also imagine why I would have been so upset.
No,
You know?
mob mentality is a thing. You know?
Yeah.
And it's not to be taken lightly. We talked
No.
a little bit about how the Panamanian police, and there's several accounts of this, where they were sent in. One account said that the police force, Coronel Garrido, went in, and he was ordered by the mayor to go in and stop the violence.
Yeah.
And it stated that they disarmed other foreign travelers, and they went to the railroad house to try and stop the crowd from attacking the people held up inside.
Mm-hmm.
And what is common with both accounts is that eventually they ended up attacking the people inside as well.
Yeah.
So the police that went there, and this is going to come up later when we talk about geopolitical repercussions, because there's a lot of repercussions from this event.
Mm-hmm.
One slice of watermelon has sent waves through time.
I'm telling you, man, it's like if we could go back in time, man, we'll be there. We'll be like, we'll be like Jack Oliver.
Pay
for that. Pay for that. We can catch him on a train. We'll be like, hey, Jack Oliver, you know what's really cool? And we give him a bottle of rum. We're like, you know what's really cool? Paying for your watermelon.
Pay for your damn watermelon.
That's what's cool. Jack Oliver.
Arnold Ferguson's like, overall tensions were waiting for a catalytic spark. Still ongoing, in my opinion. And the worst thing is we do it to ourselves. It is unfortunate, you know. It's if we think of current events, I think this might have been like the first Panamanian Black Lives Matter type of march, but it wasn't just black people; it was people of color, which includes indigenous, Asian, black, anyone who wasn't white. Was definitely not treated respectfully.
No, because even during this time, HB, like the Native Americans in the U.S. are suffering a lot.
Oh yeah, in California, the California Gold Rush, the implications for the Native Americans in California was devastating. There's just complete genocide and also famine and disease.
So I think it was one of those things where I guess globally there was a lot of tension.
How do we encapsulate that on a small podcast? Let's just keep pushing forward and try and get the. They're not necessarily facts. They're unobjective accounts of what happened. Yes. And then we can kind of put together a story around it. And if at any point you get upset, pick up a book and let us know this book had a better version than what you guys said. You better read it, and we'll read it, man. Rapscallions is all about that.
We're all about knowledge and learning what's going on around us and becoming better people. And trying not to repeat history, man. Because if there's anything that we learn from this pandemic, is that history will repeat itself.
For sure. I hope. Well, it's 4:20 already. Let's get moving because the repercussions of this.
True that.
So the police.
What happened? What happened? Tell us.
The police on several different accounts. The police had disarmed the foreigners, which includes many different types of white people, I guess. Disarmed them and had gone towards the train station to try and stop the crowd from attacking. The true number of people, we don't know. There was a mob. And then there was a smaller group of armed locals. I guess is the best way to say that. Yeah. And so they tried to get in between them. And eventually the police started also attacking the train station. Yes. Now within the train station, they found a cannon of some sort. Yes. Which is in every account. Yeah. I don't know. And one of them says they dug up a cannon in the sand, which
is weird and wild.
I need to know more.
Yeah, why was there a cannon in the understand. Why was there cannon?
But they didn't have any cannonballs, so they put rivets in there.
Okay.
And they were told by absolutely no means are you to shoot this cannon. Everyone told them not to shoot the cannon.
Okay.
Some
They shot
people
the
say that Randolph Reynolds was in the train station, and other accounts say that he was in Chagres, and they
Right.
sent for him.
Uh-huh.
One account says that El Verdugo came out to talk to the locals,
Yeah.
and because he knew Spanish and he knew them, he'd been living there, and a lot of people didn't particularly like him, but they respected him.
They respected
one
him.
account says that he came out and he spoke to them in Spanish and said that he had no effect on the situation and left. Violence ensued throughout the night. This is where the accounts get a little slimmer.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, once the violence had quelled itself, we have an account that Joe spoke about a family hiding in a hotel room, and they're trying to trade the little boy to let the women go free.
Yeah.
Another account says that they sent a telegram to Chagres, and when Randolph Reynolds arrived, he got off with his security group, and everybody, he's like, "You can put down your guns now, or we can hang you." And there was the armed group, and then there was the mob. The mob all left, and certain people in the armed group put their weapons down, and he quelled the situation.
Yeah.
Other accounts state that it kind of fizzled out, and
around dawn,
and then in the middle of the smoke and whatnot, they started counting people who had been hurt and injured. So the final death toll was 15 Americans, two international people who were among the people hiding out in the railroad station, and Panamanians was two dead Panamanians, and 13 injured.
Yeah. So I mean, it's really interesting to think. I mean, I think based on what we've learned and what we know from Rand Reynolds, I would like to believe that the fear he invoked in people would have potentially led to many people saying like, yo, I don't, because he had almost this sort of like supernatural sort of power, right?
He did. He was no nonsense.
He was no nonsense. You knew you were going to die. But then also, how long, I mean, I don't think we've seen by the riots that we've seen during our lifetime, whenever there's strong riots that people feel strongly about things, they don't just end. Right?
No, they don't just stop, or they don't fizzle out.
They don't. Something has to make them stop. Some sort of perceivable change has to happen. So if the people were really that upset, they would have kept rioting. They would have kept fighting, I think, until something would have happened. They wouldn't have just been like, yeah, me cansé, pues, I'm tired, I'm out.
Yeah. So what was the aftermath on this? There were studies done on both parts. On the U.S., they had someone attached to the United States government, Amos Corwin, did a study. And on behalf of Nueva Granada, which is Colombia, it was Lino de Pombo, Minister of Foreign Affairs, and Florentino Gonzalez. So they did their investigations on one side, and they did an investigation on the other side. And of course, this is the point that I really wanted to get to, because on the surface, we have a racial incident, and now it's being taught in school as a nationalistic incident. But we need to look at this as history repeating itself. And well, this is the hard part to explain. So I think I want to jump to the demands made on New Grenada.
Okay, but just two things. Let's talk about what the two studies found, because there were two studies that were made, right?
Yeah.
So really quickly, let's just discuss or just talk about what the two studies found. So the study by Amos Corwin basically said that it was Miguel Abraham's fault. Miguel Abraham was the person that supposedly stole the gun from Jack Oliver, and that this was a premeditated attack. This was something that they were planning, and he signaled to the native Negroes, as they say, to go ahead and do this thing, was what his report said. So it was premeditated, totally planned. What the report done by Lino de Pombo said was that it was spontaneous. And it just happened because of the previous abuse from the Americans and Jack Oliver. I almost said John Oliver, but no, Jack Oliver just triggered it because of his ignorance.
Yeah, I think he was enzymatic in a situation that was bound to happen because of treatment that had been happening.
That's right.
So somewhere in the middle is probably the truth.
Yes.
Somehow, the United States had started making demands for reparations towards Colombia or towards New Grenada. And here's where it gets interesting to me if you're a fan of history. And I want to also go back and talk about, jacknut activity and racism and how it's still going on. But let's go for these talking points here. President Franklin Pierce sent James B. Bolin, U.S. Minister to New Grenada, and Isaac Morse to Bogota as plenipotentiaries. Plenipotentiaries. Thank you.
Plenipotentiaries.
Sorry. Thank you for your patience.
Plenipotentiarios.
I can say, it's easier in Spanish.
Yeah.
Okay, to demand indemnity. Okay, so this is in February of 1857. 1 year, almost 1 year later. New Grenada produced witnesses that said that other than Americans or a few blah blah blah. Okay, so here are the talking points. Ignoring the testimony of these foreigners, the U.S. plenipotentiaries, thank you, made the following demands. Okay, this is where it resonates in history.
Tell us.
Panama and Colon would be free cities under New Grenada's sovereignty and would jointly control a 20-mile wide belt stretching from sea to sea using the railroad right-of-way as its center line. Right. So this would eventually be the canal zone, but there was already the Yankee Strip enforced by Randolph Runnels and his group of international law enforcement.
Isthmian Guard.
Point number 2 that they demanded from New Grenada. New Grenada would cede to the U.S. the islands in Panama Bay for use of naval installations.
Well.
This has happened several times in history between the United States and Panama. Point number 3. New Grenada would transfer its rights in the Panama Railroad to the U.S. Point number 4. New Grenada would pay full damages for loss of life and destruction of property in the riot. Point number 5. When the above conditions were fulfilled, the U.S. would pay New Grenada $2 million. So we've talked about it on other shows. We talked about how Grant crossed the isthmus under the guise of taking a group of soldiers to California. But the real reason is he was sent by John Hay to see the possibility of building a canal through Panama and seeing if the railroad had something to do with it.
That's right.
So they were trying to, if you look between the lines here, the United States wanted to grab control of a 20-mile wide area around the railroad for $2 million.
Yeah, I mean, it was something that I think was always in the works. In the works, it was always in their mind. I mean, from the moment that the railroad began to be built, before the railroad was even built, this was something that was already kind of being, the gears were turning. And based on what you said, this incident was just like, this is it. We're in like Flint.
So New Grenada rejected the demands of the U.S. The U.S. gave up, insisting on gaining control. And in 1860, After years of argument, according to this report, New Granada paid the United States, or New Granada paid people who were involved in loss of life $412,000 in reparations. So,
All right.
this incident, as it's taught now in Panamanian schools, I think is not being taught enough. You know, they need to, all these talking points that we've just recently gone over need to be taught instead of reenacting how some racist asshole stole a piece of watermelon.
Hmm.
The United States used that after the Incidente de la Tajada de Sandia. They used that as a reason to put U.S. troops into Panama.
Yeah.
And they continued to use that through the Monroe Doctrine to enforce the neutrality of the railroad. And then we'll see that again in the Canal Zone.
Right.
In
Well,
the
of course,
canal.
because with the Mayorino Bidlack agreement, they had like, they had to safeguard the neutrality and the transit.
Yeah. Very interesting. Very interesting, all of this. Now, I want to go back and talk about Arnold's comment. Overall tensions, we're waiting for a catalytic spark, still ongoing, in my opinion. And the worst thing is we do it to ourselves. Man, there's a lot to unwrap in that statement. In the United States, there's been a lot of, just in the past, since the pandemic, we have something going on where people are doing anti-Asian acts because of the pandemic, because one racist jacknut decided to call it the China flu.
Yeah.
And that released his horde of other jacknuts to start taking their fear out on Asian Americans. So I don't know. I don't really know how to.
I think it just proves, HB, that no matter how far we've come technologically, we have information at the tip of our fingers. Faster than ever before, we can get facts. Yet a lot of us still choose ignorance, I guess, over, or just, I don't know. I don't know. Because I think ultimately we all want to be good people, right? We all want to be positive contributors to society.
Do we? Do we really?
I don't know.
I think you and I do, and I think the people listening probably do, but there's a certain element out there that just doesn't give an F,
Yeah, that they just kind of want to do what they want to do, and what they do is right. Full stop.
I don't know. I don't understand. Well, no sé. I like the social commentary currently. I don't know if you want to keep talking on that, or do you want to keep talking about the repercussions of the Dia de la Sandia? Let me know if you, and we want to hear from you guys out there and what you guys think on all of this. What
do you guys think, man? Because I think Dia de la Sandia is still something that we haven't learned from. I think the tension that was felt in that moment is still something that carried on through, the building of the Panama Canal, through the Canal Zone era, to this moment right now is one of those things where, even though Panama got the canal back, right, which is the ultimate goal. People wanted Panamanian control of the canal. Panama should control its destiny. Cool.
Yes, Panama should control its destiny. That's a big talking point right there. So, in the Dia de la Sandia, before Panama had recently gained its independence from Spain, jumped out of the frying pan into the fire by joining Nuevo Granada.
That's right.
Which was Ecuador, Venezuela, Colombia, and Panama.
Mm-hmm.
Things happened, and then control of all these places ended up being in Colombia.
Yes.
In my limited knowledge, disclaimer, this is the first time a foreign. This is for the first modern time. That's not true. The United States also asked Simon Bolivar for interests in Panama. The United States had interest in Panama for a long time,
For a minute,
and he
yeah.
said no because they had recently separated from Spain. He thought that they would be taken advantage of. This is so much difficult things to talk about because there's so many different sources of information. So Panama has been treated as a backwater for so many years, not only by Spain during the colonial era when millions and billions and trillions worth of goods were being sacked out of South America. The second era of prominence for Panama was the railroad era. And that influx of gold to the United States is eventually what made it a world power, even though it was already on that track. The influx of money into Panama is a very rich area, and the disparity between wealth is one of the widest in the world.
Yeah.
What are these repercussions? In the past, we've seen how the United States wanted control over a 20-mile wide area in Panama City.
Yeah.
Foreign countries negotiated on Panama's behalf. It happened again with the canal. We're skipping over the whole French era, which is full of information. But then in World War II, this sentiment, this anti-American sentiment came up again because of World War II, because they used, and I think rightfully, the threat of the access to take more control in Panama. They tried again in World War I to take Toboga. In World War II, they just took over and started putting air bases all over Panama. And there was an incident there where the president of Panama tried to cross Rio Hato. The president of Panama came in his official car, and the military soldier, because there's a road there, and the military soldier's like, "You can't cross." And the guy rolls down the window. He's like, "I'm the president of Panama." He's like, "I don't give a fuck who you are. You're not crossing." And so
that's hardcore.
That's hardcore. So I think, again, that was another enzymatic incident.
Yes.
And that was the beginning of the end for the U.S. involvement in Panama. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. As soon as they built the canal, which they did because they wanted to have a two-ocean navy, as soon as World War I started, they realized that it didn't matter. I misstated myself. They wanted to have the canal so they could put their navy from Atlantic to Pacific.
Yeah.
And as soon as World War I started, they realized that the canal is worthless to them from a military aspect. They're just going to go ahead and have a Pacific fleet and Atlantic fleet.
I mean, which makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I agree with you. I mean, shizzle, man. I think as a Panamanian who's lived in the U.S., I think there's a lot of positive things that Panama gained from the U.S. Potentially having the U.S. presence here kept Panama from being in the situation that other Central American countries are in, such as Nicaragua, Honduras, Guatemala. I'm gonna say Venezuela, Guatemala. So and also, I think it helped Panama to grow and be secure. I think other countries were like, we can trust Panama. It's a secure place. It's a safe spot. And because of that, we're a hub, we're a travel hub, we're like so many things I think happened as a consequence of the U.S. building a canal here, the U.S. having a presence here. However, I think, when Panama got the canal back, it was all like, as it's been said, I said it before, everyone said it, I can't, Panama wants to control its destiny. However, but still, as you said, social classes in Panama, there's a huge disparity. So even though the U.S. isn't here, before it was like, oh, I hate the gringos. People would say that, I hate the gringos. But have things improved for people in general in Panama since the U.S. left?
I think that's one of the talking points that I wanted to get to eventually on today's show is if you don't learn from history, you're bound to repeat it. And we have Panama Ports incident, right? That's Panama Ports. That's where Panama has a combined interest in a conglomerate in the ports in Panama. They're supposed to be paid a certain amount every year. Panama has not been paid, not a fraction of what it is, and it's auto-renewing. So certain people are benefiting from that contract, and the public of Panama is not. Let's talk about the train. The train, since initially being built by U.S. private interests in 55, when it was completed, is the most successful company ever on the New York Stock Exchange. It was then sold to the French for their canal endeavor. Then it was sold to the United States government for the U.S. canal endeavor. And after the canal treaties, the first part of the canal that was turned over, besides certain residential areas, was the Canal Railroad. And it fell into complete disrepair.
It was a mess.
You're pixelated. Let me press the button.
I'm super pixelated.
It was a complete mess. They ended up selling off the metal for scrap. They didn't. It fell into such disrepair that the railroad cars and tracks were sold for parts. And amongst the Zonians, that was a huge reasons. One of the huge reasons for Zonians to think that Panama couldn't run the canal
because of what happened with the railroad.
So what happened with the railroad? So then let's look at the next contract made. PCRC is a United States private company that came in and got the bid for the railroad, and they're doing quite successfully.
For sure.
If you look at that contract, it's. I mean, they practically gave away all the land. It's God sent. So you have if we're talking about treaties made because of the railroad, treaties made because of the canal. Panama Ports, big failure on Panama's part. I have a lot of friends involved in Panama PCRC Railroad. So they did a great job in making that a successful operation. But Panama, again, under their own management,
their own
couldn't
free will,
handle the railroad and practically gave the keys to the farm to a private company. They are doing a good job with the actual canal, but I think that's a topic for another show.
But But I think, do you think, HB, that it has to do with the fact that the canal, obviously, the Panama Canal was such a huge thing, like, could you imagine if when the canal was handed back to Panamanian hands, it would have been a massive failure. That would have been,
I'm going to repost the video that ACP made. This is a documentary made by ACP about how, because of the dictatorship, all the different political parties and interests in Panama came together at the last minute to take control of the canal.
I think we definitely need to post that, because I think, the operations of the Panama Canal. I remember once I was able to visit their offices to get a view with the security within the canal, and I have never felt so proud to be a Panamanian after I saw that, and I said, right. Wow, this is a serious operation. These people care, whereas maybe with things like with other things that the government at the time had to negotiate, maybe they were just kind of a bit more nonchalant about it, because I would think, man, you have a railroad, man. I love trains, so I would have thought, like, dude, you have trains, you have a train. Why don't you take care of it? But no, he just kind of.
How would Panama have been different if they'd taken advantage of that train?
Yeah. Because right now the train's fantastic. It runs really well.
It's not used for tourism, and if you wanted to live in Panama City but work in Colón, it's not a viable option for
No.
transit.
No, it isn't. It isn't. So I think we, and I say we as a people, were saved because the canal was such a high level operation that if it failed, it would have been a massive fiasco, and Panama would have lost all credibility on the international stage.
In addition to what you just said, which I completely agree with, at the times of the negotiations of the treaty, 75% of the labor force of Panama Canal Commission was Panamanian.
Wow.
So working towards the future of the canal, a lot of Zonians stayed behind, one of them, my mother and father, to ensure that Panama, in some small part on their behalf, the turnover would take place in a way that would benefit
successfully.
Panama.
And that's key, man. That's key. That's a major key, as DJ Khaled would say. You know, sometimes with operations of this size, those roles are super important.
Yeah. Well, the comments seem to have chilled out. Does anyone have any questions? Do you have any lingering thoughts that you would like to hear us discuss? While you're thinking up those questions, why don't you think about your future? Joe, how have you planned for your future? How can someone who has some income, who has some money burning a hole in their pocket, how can
HB, let me tell you something, man. With all this Rapscallions funding that we're getting thanks to our awesome listeners, man.
Yeah.
I'm dreaming up of an ideal retirement for the Rapscallions, you know?
Sure.
But I need someone to help us get there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I'm going to trust Edward Jones. And there's no better person at Edward Jones to help us make the most out of our retirement than Luke Robertson. He's a financial advisor, loads of knowledge. Retirement is key, man, because I think all of us want to spend the final years of our life. That sounds very, 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 very bad. But, you know, it's true. Hashtag darks. But it's true. We want to enjoy the final years of our lives, man. We want to live them to the fullest, whether we want to go skydiving, whether we want to buy a bunker in Utah for the upcoming nuclear apocalypse, you know. We have to be able to properly manage our funds, and there's nobody better to do that than Luke Robertson. This guy, man, he's the bomb. He flew jets, man. You can trust him. And if you want to call him.
If you want to know a little bit more about him, you can scroll down to the episode that he was on. He was a naval jet fighter before he decided to sign up with Edward Jones, who is in the top 100 of job satisfaction companies.
Hey, HB, and you know what? I think that when people work somewhere where they're satisfied, they take greater pride in doing their work.
For sure.
You know? So, hey, if you want to reach out to him, HB, you can always call him at 757-481-0023 or send him an email at luke.robertson@edwardjones.com. He'll sort you out, man. He will sort you out.
Well done, Joe. Well done.
Thank you.
It's 4:50. We've got 10 minutes left. If you've got any questions, if you have any lingering thoughts, please let us know. We've had Arnold Ferguson says, a great historic class. Thank you for arousing the intellect and insisting the research on a great topic. Good segment. Thank you, Arnold, and thank you for tuning in.
Thank you.
If you have questions or if you have shows or topics that you want to hear us talk about, please let us know. Michelle Kuo actually gave us a great advice for how to do Panamanian superstitions. So
true that. And that was a super fun show. Totally love that show, man.
Yeah, man, that was a lot of fun. So there's a lot of topics out there. Panama is so rich in history. Yeah. As a Zonian, I think one of the things that makes me frustrated is a lot of that history is being lost.
I agree with you, man. I think from hearing what you said about how the Tajada de Sandia is being presented, and just from other things that I've seen in the past, I think it's important that we tell the truth about the way events happened. And people, I know people love having bad guys. People love having good guys. it's always easy to make the French be the bad people. It's always easy to make the Americans be the bad people. But, you know, if there were mistakes made, cool, there were mistakes. You have to understand those mistakes. You have to learn from those mistakes. But you can't take away from the good things that also happened, you know?
Sure.
I've had people tell me that they refuse to learn English because of what the U.S. did to Panama. And that, to me, is just not something that we can be doing, man. We can't.
Yeah.
As a people, we cannot.
Yeah. I mean, anytime someone offers you less education for the benefit of the country, that means that te van a conguiar.
Mhm.
They're trying to steal from you. Less
Yeah.
education is never the right choice.
Yeah.
And again, there's so many sources of information. A lot of Zonians were very particular in their learning of history. Others are assholes, and some are racist. And everyone is a universe. You can't overgeneralize too much, but unfortunately, I'm afraid that a lot of history is going to be lost with people who were very proud of Panama, and it's immense history. Panama has been so important, not only to history but to the world.
Yeah.
You know, it's the most important geological activity in the past 15 million years was the formation of Panama. It changed weather patterns. So Arnold's writing in again. He's like, I want to learn about El Casco Viejo. Is it true there was a dungeon where criminals were chained, and when the tide came up, they would drown? Yes, las bóvedas.
That's wild.
We'll do another show on that, but we also did a show called Panama City, celebrating the 500th anniversary. Check that one out, Arnold. I think we split that up into 2 episodes.
We did, because it was so long and there was so much information.
Yeah. And so also there's tunnels between all the churches in Casco Viejo.
It'd be wild to check out those tunnels, dog.
Yeah. Press that go to PanamaRP.com and press the Patreon page. Send us some funds, and I will definitely try to make that happen. We're rapscallions, dress up as pirates, and go in the tunnels underneath the churches in Casco Viejo.
Hey, and if you guys want, we'll even pretend to be like tied up and wait for the tide to come in and see if we drown. I don't know.
No, I'm not down with that. I'll swim with sharks. I'll hold snakes, but drowning, oh my God.
No, pretend drowning.
Oh,
pretend.
Okay. We'll do like special effects. There'll be
we'll be like
HB. A fish tank in front of us.
Yeah. I'll be like, HB, whatever happens, I love you.
Yeah. Yeah. So any last thoughts on the Dia de la Tajada de Sandia?
You know, one of the things I've been thinking about, HB, is, you know, again, about Panama controlling its own destiny. And I'm a bit upset. I don't know if I'm upset, but I'm just annoyed because the people that tell you that we have to control our own destiny, not all of them, but some of them only care about their own destiny.
Right.
So our destiny as Panamanians is put in the hands of people who want to live good lives. But then our lives aren't that great.
I hear what you're saying, and I think as a segue, I think what Michelle just wrote in is very true. Versions of the watermelon incident unfortunately abound globally throughout history. So you know, it keeps repeating itself, and she makes a good point. If we could all just live by the golden rule and respect each other, things would be better. Yes.
Totally.
If you have to make a choice, choose kindness. Unfortunately, it seems that the jacknuts in history seem to be the ones in control.
And for some reason, we believe them and we like them.
Yeah.
And we're like,
get
I'm
out
a
there,
vote for this.
Please vote.
Jacknut.
Get out there, learn. Education is important. There's no way we can create a change in the world without education.
Man, if there's one thing I hope we achieve with this, HB, is that people will be like, yo, I gotta get educated.
Yeah, man.
I gotta learn more.
The internet's amazing. So if you're like vexed at yourself because you're looking at Instagram too much, Google Dia de la Sandia, and you'll find like Google, the evil empire that they are, has scanned a bunch of books.
Man, there's so much stuff on JSTOR.
Yes, tons of stuff.
Wow.
And we do a lot of research, and we have so much fun doing it. But it gets a little difficult for us to make it into something coherent for you guys to listen to, because there's so much information out there.
So much information. Sometimes I get upset, man, because just when I think I understand something, I realize I don't understand it. And then I'm like, no, I got to read more.
That's wisdom right there, Joe. As soon as you understand that you know nothing, rise. That doesn't help from the anxiety of starting a show. Like, well, how do we get all this information into 2 short hours? A lot of people are like, how the heck a lot of the guests that we have on the show, we tell them it's 2 hours. They're like, how the heck am I going to talk for 2 hours? Trust me, it's easy once you start talking about history and all the factors that go into certain events. 2 hours is
especially when you try to when you try to associate it with things going on today, and effectively you realize that history does repeat itself. It's not a lie. It's not a lie. It's not a lie.
We definitely need to step up on education and kindness.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness. This was a tough episode for me because, like you said, there was so much information going on, so many different versions of it. And, when you read something, you need to take into account that the person writing it might have their own agenda.
Truth.
The people writing the textbooks have their own agenda.
Truth.
And, today in 2021, with the pandemic, where the kids aren't even going to school, they're getting their lessons plans over WhatsApp. And a lot of people living in the countryside don't even have internet.
Mm-hmm.
There's a huge breakdown in education. And the topic of the day on Thursday was reenacting the Dia de Sandia. And it wasn't talking about the implications of the treaties or whatnot, or the implications of the insurgency of the United States military. It was reenacting how a gringo stole a piece of watermelon. So I think we got a lot of work to do, Joe.
We do. Hey, but as long as we got breath in our lungs and blood in our bodies and calcium in our bones
and crank in our cup,
we'll keep doing it, y'all. We'll keep doing it.
Next week, we've got a great show. We're going to have an exciting show. El famoso Rudy Waller is going to be on the show.
No way. He agreed.
Confirmed.
How much did you pay him?
We have him on retainer. $1 million hairs.
$1 million. I love it. We're gonna have to tell Carina that she's not getting that money anymore.
That's right. So if you don't know who Rudy Waller is, he is a Zonian. He is a Panamanian, but he was also an international motocross superstar. He was number 1 in Panama, number 1 in Latin America.
What?
And he'll tell us how he ranked in the United States.
Man,
he's one of these guys that goes off the jumps and then lets go of the motorcycle and grabs back on.
That's a Superman.
Superman. He does the Superman, and he does the things and that.
Man, he sounds like one of my most awesome favorite superheroes of all time, Ghost Rider.
Ghost Rider. He's the Ghost Rider of Panama. Ghost Rider.
Wow, El Ghost Rider. El Ghost Rider. I love it.
Make sure you guys tune in next week, because not only is he a good friend and an amazing athlete, but this guy's charismatic and very entertaining as a storyteller. And he's got lots of stories. I saw him last week. And when I asked him, what's the strangest place you ever rode? And he's like, what do you mean strange? I was like, I mean, a place you never thought you would be. The answer that he told me blew my mind.
Oh, don't tell people.
Cliffhanger.
Don't tell people.
You're going to find out next week when you tune into Rapping with Rapscallions.
Oh, no. Next week is going to be Riding with Rapscallions.
Riding with Rapscallions. We're going to make some graphics with Excite Bike. Like, Joe, close us out with some inspiration. We talked a lot. I know it's going to be tough, but you can do it. Give us our moment of Rapscallions inspiration.
Here's a moment of clarity for you guys, man, and girls, guys and girls, guys and gals. We are in charge. We can be what we want what's around us to be. I think we discussed a lot today about how people say they want things to be, like Panama controlling its own destiny. But then these people that want to control Panama's destiny, they're not us. So those of you in Panama, you guys need to like be the better people that you want to see in society. Contribute to society in a positive and a kind way. Like HB said, be kind and educate yourselves. And those people that aren't in Panama but love Panama, keep spreading that positive vibes to Panama, man, because we need positive vibes. And keep spreading the positive vibes where you are. Because as long as you try and stay positive, though I know it's hard, positive things will come.
Yeah, truth, brother, truth. Hey, thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks for all your comments, especially Arnold Ferguson and Michelle Quo. It's great to
Thank
see you
you.
guys,
Thank
Fam
you so much.
Scallions. Everyone else that's tuned in. Big hearts go to Chechi with the new Rapscallions born.
No doubt, Fam Scallions for life.
Fam Scallions for life. PanamaRP.com. That's where you can get some t-shirts. Our t-shirts are on the way. We've ordered ours. Have you ordered yours? We'll be sporting them next weekend.
No
Tune
doubt.
in next week for Tales in International Motocross.
Oh,
Bum, bum, bum,
snap.
Thanks again, everyone. I've got buttons to press. Tune in every Sunday, 3 p.m., 4 p.m. U.S. Love y'all. We're having
Much
fun.
love.
Bye.
J-O-E in the place to be. HB on the track, it's like ecstasy. Rowing a well of 7 years, what we drink and be. Trying to sling the dopest rhymes in the galaxy. Let me take a minute though and relax your mind. Sometimes these words can be hard to find. 24/7 on that daily grind. Hearing voices in my head, man, they not that kind. Cause bitches be bitching, snitches keep snitching. The world keeps turning, and I keep hitching a ride instead of living my life. Yo, 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 yo.
Man, when you feel hungry, don't you have to eat?
Yo, yo, pump up the volume and digest this beat.
Rapscallions in the house with this lyrical treat.
When we're done with you, you're gonna ice your feet.
If the world ends tomorrow and you had one chance,
Hey, yo, would you start the move like it's your last dance?
yo, do something small in the past and present changes.
Do something now, the future rearranges.
Cause bitches keep bitching.
Yo, snitches keep snitching.
The world keeps turning.
And you start living your life instead of hitching a ride.